Well, Natalya, welcome to the Future Leaders Program of Development Leadership Dialogue at SOAS, University of London. As you probably know, the Development Leadership Dialogue, or DLD, has been set up to bring together current leaders and future leaders in different segments of the development community, if you like, governments, private sector, international organizations, civil society, academia, and yeah, Future Leaders program is one of the flagship programs of the Institute. This week's Future Leaders program, in which you have been participating, is on industrial policy for economic development in an age of ecological crisis. So yeah, in this age of ecological crisis, there's a lot of concern about the so-called financing gap in developing countries, both to fight climate change, its causes and consequences, but also to promote development. And in this context, there was recently an interesting incident in which at the African Union summit, Ms. Akufo-Addo, the Ghanaian president, called for greater economic sovereignty for African countries and argued that African governments should invest at least 30% of their foreign currency reserve in African financial institutions. Do you think this is an interesting idea? Do you think it will work?
I think this is an idea that has the potential to be really transformative. So as I understood it, the proposal was to basically, so instead of investing the foreign exchange reserves as they currently are in US Treasury bonds and so on, to take 30% of these and invest them in African regional organizations like the African Development Bank or the African Exim Bank. And these would then invest them domestically within African economies. And I think this, obviously this has several really important advantages. One is that the African governments investing their savings in US Treasury bonds is obviously very low yielding. It even has negative interest rates. So it would give a higher rate of return, of course. And then, this is finance, much needed finance that could be used domestically, but is instead being used to subsidize US consumption. On the other hand, given the structure of the global financial system, I think it also comes with certain risks. So I mean, the foreign exchange reserves are kept in safe assets for a reason, and that's exactly, as self-insurance, so that they can be used if there is a financial crisis or if there's pressure on the currency, they can be easily used to defend the currency or cover imports and so on. So obviously, taking these out of safe assets and investing them domestically into much riskier assets, it comes with significant risks, which is why most countries that do these kind of things are normally, the rich oil exporting countries that have lots of excess reserves and so on. That being said, these kinds of risks could potentially be mitigated if the proposal included some kind of financial safety net as well. So some kind of regional African financial safety net within what's being proposed. However, it's obviously, it's debatable whether it would be enough. So would it, even if all African governments invested 30% of their foreign exchange reserve within these regional institutions, would that be enough? One, for financial safety net during times of crisis, and two, would it even be enough for domestic development?
Yeah, but I think it's very interesting that African countries are becoming more self-confident and beginning to find, well, at least trying to find alternative ways of dealing with these financial problems. Now, with all this call for greater climate financing, I think some people are concerned that this might crowd out financing for industrialization and for other things that you need for economic development? Do you think there's really trade-off between these different things?
I mean, I don't think so at all. In fact, I think, I think the two are really complementary, and increasingly, I mean, developing countries know that they have to industrialize based on integration and upgrading within renewable energies value chains. So I don't think the two are in contradiction at all. However, I think, I think what does need to be kind of further discussed and clarified is the mode of financing, rather than, just is financing available for this or not. So a lot of the international discussion is about de-risking foreign investors to come and invest in renewable energies or in other industrial projects, or subsidizing private foreign investors. And and this is obviously necessary to some extent, but there needs to be much more discussion about the kinds of conditionalities that would be attached to these subsidies, because if there are no conditionalities attached, then how, the money might be spent on something that's not worth it.
Yeah, at DLD, we try to kind of draw attention to what we call unusual suspects, the examples of approaches to things, whether it's government policy or corporate strategy, that get frequently overlooked, but show that there's another way. Can you talk about one or two examples from your field, that is development finance, of these unusual suspects?
I think one really interesting case that maybe, I mean, it is a well-known case, but not well-known enough, I think, is the German National Development Bank, the KfW. And I think it's really important to know about this case for two reasons. So one is obviously, the German case shows that national development banks have a really important role to play, not just in, industrial development, but also in climate mitigation. So the German Development Bank that was established in, post-World War as part of the Marshall Plan played a really crucial role in German industrialization, but it also played a really important role in the early 2000s in launching renewable energies as an infant industry in Germany, and then eventually helping it to become a globally competitive export industry. So that's one reason, but I think so the German case illustrates, why it's really important to have these kinds of public institutions. But at the same time, it also illustrates how it's so much easier for rich countries to have these kind of institutions, and why it's so much more difficult for developing countries to do the same thing. So just to give one example with KfW can raise capital on international financial markets at really, really cheap rates, and that's because of Germany's AAA credit rating. Developing countries, development banks can't do the same thing at all. So they actually need to find other sources of financing. And it's much more important for the government to play a more active role in subsidizing these development banks in developing countries.
Yeah. So use tax revenue and
Exactly.
take equity investment and things like that to
exactly.
prop up. Yeah.
Especially tax-based sources of revenue, which have much sharper distributional trade-offs than just raising finance on international capital markets.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.